guys, thanks for tuning in. Today I wanted to film for you a video talking about my experience with finding my birth parent. To be exact, it was finding my biological father. My whole life I kind of was kept in the dark a little bit and didn't know too much about where I came from. So for starters, I think it's good to go back to the beginning. I have, my mom is from Hungary, and I knew I was definitely 50% Hungarian. But growing up, I was told that my biological father didn't necessarily want to be in the picture, and I got only two pieces of information about him. I knew that his name was Michael and that he was Jamaican, and that, you know, pretty much my mom used to work on a cruise ship, and that's where she met my father, and they were in a long-term relationship, but he didn't want to have a baby. So that's kind of all that I knew. And then growing up, I would wonder, but not so much, because my siblings' dad raised me. He stepped in and raised me as a kid, so I kind of had a father figure growing up. But I was also told a lot of things, such as my father didn't want me, and things like that. So I never pursued looking for him or knowing more information about him. I really honestly didn't think anything of it. My mom never told me any more information because I really never asked. When you're told that your father didn't want you, or a parent didn't want you, I think most people don't feel the need to want them, you know. So that was the case for me. I didn't necessarily think about it or want to know more about my others, like the other part of me, until I got pregnant with my daughter. I was filling out paperwork, you know, at my OB's office, and they would ask about family history, medical history, and it kind of, you know, dawned on me that I didn't know anything. I had a heart murmur growing up, and I'm like, it was not a big deal, but I had that, and they usually say that's genetic, but it didn't happen on my mom's side, so I figured maybe I got a heart murmur from my father's side. So that kind of worried me a little bit, because I didn't want something to happen to my kids, or, you know, my future children, and not know, like, where it came from, or how to, you know, the history. Maybe it could help prevent future, I hate saying problems, but, you know, future medical issues. So that was kind of the base of me wanting to find out who my father was. It wasn't for a connection, it wasn't for a relationship, it was solely for medical history on his side. So I, you know, thought about it, talked to my husband, but I never tried looking. It wasn't until after my daughter was born, way after, I remember specifically, it was in January, I want to say January of 2017. I was curious, and I'm like, I'm just gonna search his name. I asked my mom what his last name was, so that it would give me a better idea of who he was and how to find him. So I typed in his first and last name. I'm not going to give his last name for the sake of the video and privacy, but anyways, I typed it in. It was super easy. A picture came up. I knew that that was him because my mom showed me a picture of him when I turned 18 years old, so I knew that that was him. He owned his own business, and on his website it provided an email. So I'm like, well, it's all or nothing. Let's just shoot him an email and see what happens. And I am not really afraid to seek information, ask for help, ask questions, but the amount of nerves that were running through my body when it came to emailing a person to kind of claim that he was my father and not know how he would respond was so, like, insane. And it was like, you had a stomach ache, I had butterflies, I was scared, I didn't know what to say. So to sum it all up, I pretty much said, hi, my name is Sarah. I gave my last name. I said my mother's name is Gabby. I was wondering if you knew of this person. And I'm not joking, I want to say maybe 10 minutes later he emailed me back and said, I do know Gabby, now that I remember. I knew her from working on the cruise ship about over 20 years ago. And I go, this might seem crazy, but I was told that you might possibly be my biological father. He wrote me back and said, you know what? I might be your biological father. And then he went on to say, I've always wanted to know if I was your father, but I didn't know how to kind of pursue that. So what do you want to do from here? And I said, wow, I was like shocked. I honestly was like not really excited because I didn't know too much about why he didn't pursue finding out, like when he's a parent. But I talked it over with my husband. He's like, well, I'm just glad he emailed you back. So what happened was I said I would like to find out. So obviously the first steps of doing that is getting a paternity test. And he's like, I totally agree. I am currently living in Jamaica. That's where he was living. I mean, he had his own business and was operating that through there. He's like, so I'm going to get an international paternity test. I'm going to send it out to you and ship it, and we'll find out, and I'll pay for it. And I was relieved. He was really nice. That's pretty much all that happened. That's kind of like all the exchange of communication that went on between him and I at first. So I got the paternity test in the mail, and you had to swab it on your inner cheek. And you had to sterilize everything around it, you know, wash your hands, seal it in this envelope, and ship it out. I've never been more afraid of my life. I was like, well, this is my dad. I mean, Michael was my dad. That's what I was told my entire life. My whole life, I was, you know, growing up in this small town with, you know, like 95% more, 98% of it was this white community. So I was like proud to be Jamaican, you know. I think my friends thought it was cool. I thought it was cool. I owned it. So I was sure, like, the only thing I wasn't sure on was when I saw a picture of him, I'm like, he doesn't really look like me though. Like, I don't look like my mom. And when I saw him, I'm like, how could I look like him? I don't see it. But then them two combined, I didn't see my features as well. So I had a lot of doubts. Okay. So then, waiting for the results to come in, I ended up contacting my mom. My mom didn't know that I reached out to my said-to-be biological father, and I said, hey, I ended up reaching out to Michael, and I wanted to confirm that he's my father. She was super supportive, but kind of distant. I don't want to bash my mom in any way when making this video. I don't want it to come off that I, like, you know, am upset with her, but, you know, it was hard for me to process all the information that was coming from her all at one time 22 years later. So I said, I don't know, I just don't think I look like him, you know. And she said, well, out of the blue, she said, well, you know, it could be this other guy that I, you know, was dating around the same time as Michael. And I'm like, what do you mean? It could be. You told me my entire life that it was Michael. You know, there was never another guy. I never heard of another guy. She said, yep, I'll give you his name. His name is Aldwin Paris. And I'm like, okay. I will put that into google.com. And I said, all right, thanks. You know, pretty short to the point. I was very upset. Just going to leave it at that. Okay? I'm sure you can interpret how I was feeling when I found out this information. But anyways, I typed it into Google, Aldwin Paris. My mom said that the gist of it was that she was seeing this guy. She broke up with Michael and then ended up seeing this guy for like 2 weeks and then got back together with Michael. Okay? A lot can happen in 2 weeks, people. So I was scared now, waiting for my paternity test to come back from Michael, and now being informed that there's another person. So as I typed in his name, Aldwin, into Google, a picture showed up, and that was it. I couldn't find any information on him, nothing. He didn't have a Facebook, no social media. I had no idea where he was from, where he was living. I just got a picture, and it was a picture that was uploaded to an article in Dublin, Ireland, and it was showcasing that he was an executive chef for this well-known restaurant in Dublin, Ireland. So it said Aldwin Paris, and I'm like, I don't know how many Aldwin Parises there are. I'm just going to go with this picture, screenshot it, and send it to my mom to kind of see if this is the person she was talking about. So I screenshot the picture, and I sent it to my mom, and she said, yep, that's him. That's Aldwin. And to be honest, before I even sent it to her, I knew that that was Aldwin, and I'll tell you why. I saw the picture, and I looked at his face. I zoomed in really close. I'm like dissecting every inch of that picture, and I looked at Jericho and I said, "This is my father." I knew right then and there. I didn't need the paternity test results. I didn't need my mom to, validate the picture. I just knew it, and the reason I knew it was his features. I mean, the picture was a side profile of him cooking in a restaurant, and then next to it was a picture of him like looking down while he was cooking. And I saw that the profile was the same as mine. Me looking down looked the same as him looking down when he was cooking. My daughter looks exactly the same from the side, and so does my son. We have that very distinctive profile. So I just knew. And my mom said, "Yep, that's him. And that's Aldwin." And I'm like, "Okay. I'm going to wait to see and see the results that come back from Michael being my father because I had no way to contact Aldwin." So I waited, and about, I want to say it was 10 days to get the results back. I got them in the mail. I opened it up, and it said negative. It didn't match our biology, like our makeup, our genetic makeup. The numbers were off. Nothing matched. And then on that same day, I got an email, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 minutes from receiving the package, like the results. Michael did email me and said, "Sarah, I got my results back. I am sorry, but it looks like I'm not your biological father. I am sorry. I hope that you can find clarity in all of this and that you can one day find who your father was." So he was really nice, wasn't super, I don't know how to explain it. He was nice, but it wasn't the way, I didn't expect him to be fatherly right away is what I'm saying. So he was just nice and easy to kind of communicate with. So I knew obviously already that he wasn't going to be my father, but hearing that was super hard for me to digest because that meant that I wasn't Jamaican completely. I didn't know Aldwin's background. I had no idea. But I'm like, I have a good chance that I'm not Jamaican and that's not who I was my whole life. So I was kind of heartbroken, and I was, because I had no way to locate or pinpoint my father, Aldwin. That's who I was kind of hoping was, since, we eliminated Michael. Anyways, I was super scared because there was nothing about him. So I'm like, is he even alive? Is he dead? I just hope he's not a drug dealer. I hope he's successful because Michael was successful. So I was just kind of hoping that was going to be the case for Aldwin as well. If you hear anything, my neighbor is mowing his grass, so it's kind of loud. It's literally right next door. So anyways, what I had to do was search Aldwin Paris again on Google and kind of just go page by page. There's so many pages at the bottom of the website on Google, and I'm like, the further back you get, it's the less information you get. So anyways, I ended up coming across this Facebook profile of a guy that was tagged in a picture alongside Aldwin at the restaurant that they worked together in. So I'm like, this is really weird and random, but this is my only chance to kind of figure out and find where Aldwin is. So I typed in the name of the guy that was standing next to Aldwin in the picture on Facebook, and his profile picture came up, and I added him as a friend, and he was also currently living in Dublin, Ireland, and I added him as a friend on Facebook. That's kind of weird. It was this guy that was 30 years old, this white guy that was 30 years old. He would never know who I was, so it was really random. I'm like, if he doesn't accept my friend request, how am I gonna message him? And so anyways, he ended up accepting it, so I was really excited, and now I had to go about my second time sending a message to a complete stranger about trying to find out who my father was. So this time was a lot more weird because it wasn't directly messaging Aldwin, but I said, "Hey, my name's Sarah. I have a feeling that my biological father might be Aldwin Paris. I know this might be weird, but I found an article of you two working together, and I just needed to know more information. I didn't know if you knew of him and if you knew where he could be. So it took about 24 hours, literally the next day, to hear back from him, and he said, I'm gonna need more information because the last time I talked to Aldwin was about 4 years ago when we worked at this one restaurant together. I'm like, okay, what more information do you need from me? And it was really sketchy at first because he was like, I need your first name, your last name, your mother's first name, her last name, and a phone number to reach you on. I haven't talked to him in 4 years, but I need that information because I don't want to go to him if I do find him and give him this alarming news without any more detailed information. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna give this stranger my entire identity and see what happens. So I was nervous about it. I gave him literally everything, even my email. I even sent a picture because he wanted me to send a picture of my face, my mom's face. I know, that's really weird. I was nervous about it, but I'm like, this is my only shot because I can't afford to hire a private investigator to pinpoint my father's location. So I want to say maybe 1 to 2 weeks goes by and I'm getting ready for work to go to the gym, and it's about 6 a.m. and I get a call from, it says Dublin, Ireland. So I'm like, oh my god, that white guy from Facebook, he's calling me. Like, this is so cool. And I pick up the phone, thinking it's gonna be him. I'm like, hello? It's 6 a.m. I'm really tired. I'm like, hello? And the person's like, Sarah? And I'm like, hello, I can't really hear you. I noticed there was an accent, so, I'm terrible with accents, even though my mom's from Europe. I can't understand anybody. So he's like, Sarah, this is Aldwin Paris, and he's saying his name in this, Islander accent, so I couldn't make it out. And I'm like, Aldwin? You're saying this is Aldwin? And he's like, yep, this is me. Is this Sarah? And I'm like, yes. And I just kind of froze and started instantly bawling. My husband was like, what's wrong? I'm like, Jericho, it's Aldwin. He called me. It worked. And all of a sudden, we were chatting on the phone. He confirmed that he knew my mom. He was in love with my mom. They met for a short amount of time, but he tried pursuing a relationship with her, but she wanted to pursue a relationship with Michael instead. He kind of gave more background information on my mom and his relationship, but he had no idea that my mom was pregnant. My mom fully believed that Michael was the father. She said that she, back then didn't understand, ovulation dates and all that stuff, just the gist of it. She just didn't understand. She thought that Michael was the father. Aldwin had no idea my mom was pregnant. He told me that all he knew was that my mom got back together with Michael, and then all of a sudden their relationship ended, and she left the ship to move to America. He didn't know why she moved to America. So, which I could, obviously do a video on that whole spiel about how my mom came to America, because it's pretty interesting. But anyways, Aldwin said me and Michael were actually friends. So him and I aren't friends anymore because we were kind of fighting over the same, person. So he confirmed that my mom and him were together, that he loved her, and he has thought about her, for the past 20 years. He said that my mom was the love of his life. I mean, that's just like a little brief summary of that. Obviously, we talked that first time for about 20 minutes because I had to go to work, but then we talked for hours, and then every single day or every other, for months. But then he told me that he has 4 kids of his own. After my mom and him split, he ended up meeting a woman on the ship and marrying her, and they had 4 boys. So I have 4 brothers, and I was itching to ask him, where he was from, and he told me he was from Trinidad and Tobago. So that was emotional, but it was really cool. He told me a little bit more about my history and my grandparents, and I sent him pictures of myself and my kids, and we look alike. I literally look exactly like my father. I will insert a picture of him here. I don't think he would mind if I did that, but I'll insert a picture of him here showing, how similar our features are. but we confirmed that he's my father. And, you know, it's crazy because my whole life I wanted to know, you know, that I had a father, but not, you know, pursue it. But I was told a false information about it. So finding out, you know, the truth 22 years later was very hard to digest. I'm angry more than I am sad or heartbroken. I'm more angry because I feel like I was robbed 22 years of knowing my father, and I think he was robbed, you know. And not to put the whole blame on my mom, but even, I think it was just timing. It was back then, I mean, over 20 years ago, I think people weren't really aware of, just like ovulation and checking your date and knowing when you ovulate and how, you know, stuff like that, and how like being with two people, you know, so close and, you know, together could, you know, result in there being false information, you know. So I have to keep telling myself that because I can't live in, you know, hatred my whole life. But anyways, that is like a quick story. I didn't want to pour too much into it because, you know, I want to keep my mom and her feelings, you know, private, and my feelings about it a little bit more private because they're pretty strong, and I don't, you know, want anyone to take or get the wrong idea. But yeah, I am, to sum it all up, I am 50% Hungarian, 50% Trinidadian. It's really cool. That's my story. I'm not Jamaican. It's sad, but I don't know. It's cool. And to give a little bit more background on Aldwin, he is successful. He's not a drug dealer. Yes. I'm very happy about that. But he's successful. He's an executive chef. He actually runs 12 restaurants all throughout Dublin, Ireland. He is the main manager. So food runs in my blood. My mom's a chef. She's a European pastry chef. My father is an executive chef. So yeah, I think that's really cool. It makes sense, you know. It makes sense to put the pieces together and see where I fit in that puzzle. So I wanted to make this video to inspire you to find out who you are, you know, whether or not you want a relationship with your biological parent or not. It's really cool to know where you come from. And if you do have kids and procreate and choose to, you know, raise children, and, you know, I think it's important to know where you come from. I think me finding out this piece of information has changed my life. And honestly, it's cool. It's cool to see what your kids have, you know, from you. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and stay tuned for the next one. Bye.